Right now, we're going to get to it. We're going to go to Joe from Lizella. Hi, Joe.
Hi.
How you doing?
Hey, Joe.
Just fine.
Good. Go ahead with your question.
Yes, I slipped and fell at work here a year ago, and I've been out on work comp. I've had quite a few surgeries and a lot of stuff done to my legs. And here the other day, I got a letter from my company stating that I was terminated because I was out on a leave of absence. After a year of being out, they terminated me.
Oh, okay.
Joe, unfortunately, I think that's somewhat of a common theme. Many times through the employment process, if there is, they have kind of after a year or 2 years, I've seen it where they're, at some point in time, it's a arbitrary number or date, but they're going to terminate at that point, I'm not 100% sure about which companies do it. There's some that do not. But those companies that when they do terminate, those unfortunately after a certain period of time, they do. Now your rights really don't change other than, in fact, I think in some ways it actually, not knowing your release status and if you've been released back to work, I think it puts you in a slightly better position for your workers' compensation claim in certain instances and a little worse than others. But, you know, unfortunately they do have the right to do that.
No,
Joe, did we lose Joe?
Did we lose Joe?
Sounds like.
Okay.
But you said it doesn't change the status of the claim?
It doesn't really. I mean, if there's, unfortunately, if you're still working for an employer and you're terminated at some point in time, the benefit is that you know, they're going to have to continue paying your benefits and continue the medical treatment just as they've done before. But the downside is if you have a limited restricted release where you've been released back to work and you have certain restrictions, then unfortunately you're going to have to start looking for a job within that restricted release and do what's called a diligent job search in order to maintain the income benefits being paid to you. And that would have been what I was going to get to with Joe.
Well, Joe, how do you determine how much a person receives in their claim?
Talking about the income benefits?
Yeah.
Well, after a claim is deemed compensable and the workers' compensation insurer begins to pay, you know, what they're going to do is look at the 13 weeks prior to the injury, and they're going to average those out, divide by 13, and it's going to give them an average weekly wage. It's 2/3 of that number, but it's capped in Georgia at $500. Okay. So you could be making $1 million a week, but $500 a week is all you'd receive under comp in Georgia.
Okay. And what about, I said something earlier in the lead-in when I was talking about the doctor. Who determines what doctor? Well,
it's the employer-insurer. If there should be a panel of physicians posted. And again, most employers in Georgia are required to have workers' comp. There are exceptions. They have to have more than 3 employees. Many in the agricultural field are exempted. But if your employer has workers' comp, they're supposed to have a posted panel of physicians. So these are going to be at least 6 doctors or facilities that you can go to if you're injured. And you do have certain rights with that, but you should get to choose off that panel. Now, I'll say typically when an injury occurs, the employer sends you to one without asking the question of which one do you want to select off the panel. And oftentimes the panels there aren't valid panels or they're not posted like they should be.
How about in the context if you're injured and you're taken to an emergency room?
Yeah, any treatment you receive, even if you have an accepted comp, I mean, it would be covered if you're taken to the emergency room. Oftentimes, many, you know, or unfortunately, sometimes injuries are so severe, you don't have time to schedule with a panel physician and get you into their office. It's an emergency scenario. So you're transported via ambulance. The doctors that treat you there at the ER are your authorized treating physicians. And they then, once you get to a point of being stable, oftentimes they maintain that treatment, if they're orthopedic surgeons, maintain that treatment through the process. If not, they will refer you to someone else or get you back to a panel doctor. But even if you have an accepted claim and you're treating with a doctor, you say it's over the weekend and you're having some type of emergency scenario or you're in a lot of pain, you know, you can go to the emergency room and that will be covered under your comp claim as well.